Good evening, everybody. We're back. Not only is Bay Tales back, but VNAT B for one night only is back. Thank you all for joining us. Here's Simon. Hi, Simon. Are you okay?
Hi, I'm good. Yes, yeah. So why are we doing this tonight? Well, we're shamelessly marketing here. As some of you may know, we're going to be holding our first physical event here in Whitley Bay at the fantastic Whitley Bay Playhouse on February the 12th of next year. It's a whole day of panel discussions featuring the authors, well, some of the authors you'll be reading tonight, talking about their books, as well as many, many more. Their influences, their writing processes, and in a lot of cases, the TV, film adaptations being made of their works. In addition, we're going to have sneak peeks of some of the biggest books coming from the biggest publishers in 2022. We've got an on-site bookshop, care of the Forum/Bound, who are going to be on-site and will be selling signed copies and all of that good stuff. We'll have some Bay Tales merchandise.
Woo! Sorry, I forgot about the rules.
And other things like chance to get not yet released titles, plus reader and writer raffles for charity with literally money can't buy prizes that you've got to be there to find out more about. But as you'd expect, hopefully, if you've seen us before, we've got some surprises lined up as well. So tonight is a bit of a whet your appetite and your chance to hear some of the authors who will be joining us on the day actually read from their work. So watch out during the break for more details about our big day, how you can get tickets for just £30 for an all-day pass. And thanks for coming. It's good to be back. A couple of things at the bottom of your screen, as a lot of you have already seen and discovered and know. Remember when we started doing this a year and a half ago and we haven't explained how Zoom worked? It's a different time, isn't it?
Yeah, different time.
So, as you all know, you've got a chat button at the bottom there. So feel free to have a chat with everybody else in the chat room there. Try to keep it to a minimum while the authors are actually reading from their books. There's also a Q&A button there. So if you've got any questions for any of the particular authors, feel free to pop them in there and we'll try and sort out the ones that say, do you remember you owe me a £5 from the conference the last time we saw you? And we'll put any of the other questions to the authors. Competition. Tonight's competition, as those of you who have been to one of our shows before will know, we try to have a little competition and give some books away. We're doing things a little bit different tonight. There'll be no reminder during the break. Instead, we'd advise you to jot down which of the readings you're really liking the sounds of, and then watch at the very end of the show. We'll put up a slide telling you which authors' books are available to win and how to win them. There you go. I'll shut up for a couple of minutes.
I did really want to find like the Del Boy Zoom filter for when you were giving it the big sales pitch. You're going to be great at Living North this weekend. Anyway, so tonight is a Bay Tales VNAT B mashup. So we're going back to our hat, which I nearly forgot. Names are pulled from a hat in a random order. Yeah, so if you can, give us a drum roll. I won't be able to hear it, but it'll be nice to know you're doing it. If you would like to tweet about us or talk about us on social media, it's hashtag VNATB and hashtag BayTales. Take pictures, tag us in it. It's just lovely to see that everybody's enjoying it. Yes, Susan the Book Trail, the hat is back, and one day you will be able to walk around a bar again carrying the hat for me. Tonight we're going to see some of the biggest reads from 2022, and it's only October 21, with Amen Alonge and Nikki May reading from their novels for the first time ever. Ooh, we're all about the exclusives here at VNAT B Bay Tales. So before we do that though, we are going to do Bay Tales a little bit, but very, very briefly. I'm going to talk about a book that I'm very excited to read this month. It's called Murder on a Winter's Night, and it's edited by Cecily Gayford. The halls might be decked and the mistletoe may be hung, but in these 10 classic crime stories, you're more likely to come across a corpse under the Christmas tree than a present. From a Santa Claus with a secret to a violent theft that snowballs into something quite unexpected. Pull up a chair, throw another log on the fire, and let history's greatest crime writers surprise, delight, and chill you to the bone. This lovely collection, I just love the cover so much, but also it has stories from Dorothy L. Sayers, Arthur Conan Doyle, What Is Wrong With Me, Cyril Hare, Marjorie Allingham, Mark Billingham, and more. I'm a bit early, really, because it's clearly for Christmas, but I might start reading it. I think the word on the street is we're going to get snow before the end of the month. I hope that's not true, but if it is, perfect read for it. Simon, have you got a book you'd like to talk about?
Well, I've gone much more seasonal. Afraid of the Shadows. This is the third in the Afraid series of short stories collated by Victoria Selman, featuring 20 top-notch authors, including quite a few former Virtual Noir at the Bar guests, and less importantly, some of them are CWA winners, Sunday Times bestsellers, and so on. But clearly, it's all about Virtual Noir at the Bar, really. So you can read spooky shorts from the likes of M.W. Craven, one of tonight's guests, Trevor Wood, Dominic Nolan, Robert Scragg, Victoria Selman. The last three all shortlisted for the 2021 CWA Short Story Dagger Award for their entries to the previous Afraid anthology. I mean, really, I could go through, as you'll see at the top, if it's in the right way around, the list of authors in there is just phenomenal. Enough to say, really, you can get a copy of the book for just $1.99 on Kindle or $6.99 in paperback. Now, normally we offer some of our recommendations away to one lucky winner. We're not doing that the case here because all profits from the book are being donated to a range of charities, including Rights of Women, East Surrey Domestic Abuse Services, and Barnardo's. So if you want a few chills this Halloween while supporting some great causes, that could be the book for you. Now, back to Vic, and let's get this evening started with the hat.
It's here. Oh, can you believe it? I can't believe the last VNAT B was in December last year. So give me a drum roll, please, folks. Let's see who the first victim is tonight. Oh, it's Amen Alonge. Amen Alonge was born in Lagos and moved to London as a teenager. He's an author, lawyer, and a father, and we're delighted to be welcoming him to Whitley Bay in February. Join us in February to see Amen on a panel entitled Crime City, along with Trevor Wood and Olivia Kiernan. Tonight is Amen's first ever reading from A Good Day to Die. So we're so excited, Amen. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. As Vic said, it's my first ever reading, and Beethoven in February is going to be my first ever live event. So please come and say hello. And again, be nice about this today. The first one. Okay. So here I go from the first chapter of A Good Day to Die. And again, about 2 years before, forgive me. Mei Ling sits alone at the large centerpiece table in an impressively opulent banquet hall. She's bored and unimpressed by the grandeur, but she's enjoying the sultry solo jazz performer on the stage and her fourth glass of champagne of the night. From her seat, she can see across the palatial hall, and it seems everyone but her husband is staring at her. They don't smile or look away when she locks eyes with them either. She could easily pretend to be having a good time because she's good at pretending. She once had a burgeoning career as an actress, but she quit. Dreams are for little girls, she told herself. Her husband has been working the crowd for half an hour and hasn't looked in her direction once. She turns away from the stage to search for him again in the lively room. All the men look almost identical in black tuxedos, but she easily spots him. She watches him and he looks alien to her in a tuxedo, but it handsomely fits his tall and lean frame. She sighs. She knows the worst is over as the dinner will finish soon. But just before she turns back to the stage, her husband catches her eye with a smile. At 51, age has been good to him. He has the vigor of a younger man and still has all his jet black hair. He walks towards her and a plump man follows him closely. She wears a well-practiced smile and stands as they approach. In her high heels, she's the same height as her husband and almost a foot taller than the other man. Monica, my beautiful wife, Mei Ling's husband says to the other man. Frank Robert, Hampstead and Kilburn MP, the man introduces himself with pride. Nice to meet you, Frank, she says, and shakes his outstretched hand. He stands on his toes to kiss her on both cheeks. Forgive my husband, call me Mei Ling. Only my gran calls me Monica. Very well, Mei Ling, Frank says. Your husband speaks highly of you, says you organized this all by yourself. Yes, she did, her husband interjects. The Camden Children Together charity is very dear to her heart. Her father, you know, they took care of him as a boy. He turns to Mei Ling for confirmation, and she nods. You've done a wonderful job, Frank says. I thank you on behalf of Hampstead and Kilburn. My pleasure, she says, and glances at her husband with a subtle but peculiar expression that only he will recognize, her simmering annoyance. Go on, Frank, he says. Enjoy yourself. I'll see you soon. We'll finish our chat. Sure, Frank says. Frank politely smiles at Mei Ling, and she smiles back. Mei Ling continues to smile as she watches Frank walk away, and as soon as Frank enjoys the crowd, she glares at her husband, but he's oblivious to her glare because he's watching the room. He turns to her and genuinely smiles as he admires her. Monica, she asks. He shrugs. Forgive me, he says. But what? She asks and shakes her head in disgust. Mei Ling is not good enough for your new friends? And no one else can hear you, so just talk normally. Ah, fuck, he mutters. What's wrong now? He asks in his true, coarse London accent, which has a faint hint of Irish in it. Nothing, she snaps. I don't like this place. There's people look at me like trash. Who did? She chuckles. What are you going to do about it? She asks. Tell Frank? What? This isn't you. You don't belong here, and this stuck-up fucks know it. They know who you are. Everybody in London knows. I'm not hiding it, am I? He retorts. This lot think I'm a changed man with more money than sense. That's what matters here. Plus they came, didn't they? And they're pressing pops in here, and no one's shying away from taking a photo with me. Enjoying my booze, my food. If this comes off, I'm sweet with this lot. Even get Frank's job in a few years. You live the life and you'll enjoy it. For now, all you need to do is smile, okay? She shakes her head and this angers him. Stop that shit, he commands. There are people fucking watching, and smile for fuck's sake. His tone stuns her and she glares at him, but he looks away. She snatches a customized cigarette case from the table. What are you doing here? Going outside for a fag. What does it look like? You're going to leave the bag, he says, and gestures to a large handbag on the table. Yes, it's fucking heavy. You know that. I know, and that's why you take it with you. I can't be watching it, and we can't leave that amount of cash lying around his vultures. Why don't you? Don't argue. He reaches into the bag and picks out a platinum security bracelet that's attached to it. He grabs the wrist and locks the security bracelet above an exquisite diamond bracelet, which definitely disguises it. Fuck this, she says, and grabs the bag. She attempts to strut past him, but he places a hand on her belly to stop her. Let one of the boys know you're outside, he softly says. Don't want you out there alone, looking this ravishing. She forces a smile and he smiles back. She walks across the busy hall to a fire exit and barges out. The night is quiet and sparsely lit. She scans the street and it's desolate. She walks a few steps to an area of the pavement not lit up by the street lights, and with every step, her stiletto heel produces a sharp sound that echoes into the night. She places a cigarette between her lips and takes her time to light it. She takes a long drag and savors it before she slowly exhales. The chill of the April night seeps through her thin dress, and she shivers. She could have gotten a jacket, but she didn't leave through the main entrance past the cloakroom because she didn't want one of her husband's boys guarding the entrance to follow her. She's grown tired of the constant presence in her life. From the moment she started dating her husband while he was still in his first marriage, her life became one of constant paranoia. Not hers, but his. He has her followed and guarded every minute of the day. He's without doubt a jealous man, which has something to do with it, but he has a justified fear that she's a prime target for the vast collection of enemies he's amassed through his infamously violent decades in London underworld. She takes a last drag and tosses the stuff to the ground. She snaps open the cigarette case. Give me the bag, someone says from behind her.
Thank you so much for that. I would also, while I've got you on here, like to apologise for my 2-year-old calling you this afternoon.
Oh, no, that was fun. That was good. I can't wait for mine to start doing that as well.
And I have a question from Alex Hawley, who says, could you tell us, well, first of all, he really enjoyed your reading, so thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Yeah.
Well done. And we're getting a lot of love in the chat too.
Thank you.
Alex says, could you tell us what advantages a dinner party has when opening a novel?
I think for this one, it sort of like, it particularly puts to be fair, both these people or the protagonist in this particular scenario is not the protagonist of the book, but it sort of puts her in a different light, somewhere that she's uncomfortable. So it sort of lets you know how she acts when she's uncomfortable and how she relates with her husband in that sort of uncomfortable situation and how they have different motives of life. She doesn't have an easy life. He wants to move up in the world and whatnot. But so that's just what it just shows. It just shows immediately that, okay, she's uncomfortable and this is how she is. She's, she could be pretending, but she doesn't. She could be, there are other things she could be doing to sort of like make herself feel better, but she doesn't. She just wants to get out. So that's just shows who she is in that sort of instant immediately.
That's
why I did that.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for joining us. And we'll see you in real life in February. I
know, thank you. This was awesome. I have to say, I loved every second of it. Even the prep and having my wife listen to it like 10 times. Like by now, it's just she can say it, by herself. But yeah, I loved it. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody.
So much. And we'll see you in Feb. Thank you.
Thank you. See you in Feb.
Well then, have you got your drums ready, everybody? Because next one's up, and it is Amy McCulloch. Amy McCulloch is a Chinese white author born in the UK, raised in Ottawa, Canada, and is now based in London, but not tonight. Oh no. Breathless is Amy's debut thriller, and it's inspired by her own experiences as a mountaineer. In 2019, she became the youngest Canadian woman to summit Mount Manaslu. Is that the correct pronunciation?
That's right. Yep, that's
Perfect.
right.
Thank you. So everybody, huge round of applause for Amy McCulloch.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I'm actually calling in from Greece. So not to make everyone too jealous, but I'm really pleased to be able to still join you, and also really looking forward to coming in February to Whitley Bay and to Bay Tales, and to hopefully meet some of you in person and to talk more about Breathless. So I'm going to read from the prologue, and Breathless is following the story of struggling journalist Lesley Wong, who gets the opportunity of a lifetime to interview the world's most famous mountaineer, Charles McVeigh, as he's about to complete a world record-breaking mountain achievement. However, he puts a condition on the interview, which is that Cecily has to summit his final mountain alongside him so that she can get firsthand experience of what it's like above the death zone. But after a series of unfortunate deaths, which are written off by almost everyone else as accidents, Cecily begins to wonder if there isn't something a bit more nefarious going on. So I'm going to read from the prologue, which actually takes place on summit day. Breathe, Cecily. Cold air filled her lungs. It was strange. When she'd pictured breathing up here, she'd assumed it would feel like suffocating, choking, maybe, in a way, like drowning. But it didn't. She could feel the sting of the wind on a tiny bit of exposed skin on her cheek, between her buff and her sunglasses, and then a stronger gust against her body, threatening to bring her to her knees. The air was there. It just wasn't doing what it was supposed to. She was so tired. Her muscles struggled to work as she pushed through the snow. Not just her muscles, her blood, her lungs, her brain. It was simple, really. There wasn't enough oxygen in the air, less than a third of what her body was used to. The altimeter on her watch read that she was still up above 8,000 meters, in the death zone. Her heart raced. She looked over her shoulder. Was he following? She stopped in her tracks. A hulking silhouette a few meters above her, his ponderous steps breaking fresh snow, stalking her, chasing her. But no, she blinked and realized it was only the shadow of a cloud on the mountainside. Without enough oxygen reaching her brain, not even her eyes could be trusted. So, is he coming, or is he waiting below? She didn't think it was possible for her heart to beat faster, but it did, galloping inside her chest. Her breath sped up too, as she gulped down the thin air. She swooned, her head spinning. What did it matter if he was above or below her? Worry about him later. Worry about survival now. She moved as fast as her body would let her. 1,000-meter drop was one misstep away. Meanwhile, phantom footsteps haunted her from behind. She had to get down the mountain, and she was going to have to do it on her own.
Thank you so much for that.
Short, sharp reading there from the pointy end of Breathless.
Which is what we love here. Again, everybody's I think just totally hooked. Can't wait to read it. And thank you very much. We are all very jealous that you're in Greece and would love to be there with you. But yes, we will see you in Whitley Bay.
Yeah, see you in February, which is just it's just going to be the Saturday before Breathless is officially released. So I'm really excited to it's like a launch event. So it's really, really fun.
Oh, that's perfect. Enjoy the rest of your trip and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Gosh, the standard's high tonight. We do spoil you, don't we? Hey. Drum roll. It is Vaseem Khan, author of the Baby Ganesh Agency and Malabar House series. Vaseem will be opening our Bay Tales live show alongside his friend and ours, Anne Cleves. We're also delighted to have Ayo Anatade to be facilitating that session as well. So hello, Vaseem, how are you?
Hi, Vic, how are you? And thanks for inviting me along.
Delighted to have you. I'm just going to hand over to you now, if that's okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to do a very short reading, but I'm going to use more of my 5 odd minutes to set the scene for The Dying Day. So The Dying Day is the second book in the Malabar House series, historical crime novels set in 1950s Bombay in India. And they feature India's first female police detective, Persis Wadia, and her sidekick, Archie Blackfinch, a criminalist from the Metropolitan Police, who's been sent to Bombay to help the Bombay Police set up its own forensic science lab. The pair of them were introduced in Midnight at Malabar House, and Persis was tasked to investigate the murder of a very senior British diplomat. Now, Malabar House is Bombay's smallest police station, and all the rejects and the misfits and all those who are in bad odor with the senior echelons of the Bombay police force, they're all sent to Malabar House. And of course, Persis is sent there when she graduates. Her only crime is that she's the only woman on the force and nobody wants to work with her. But by the end of that book, you know, she's made a place for herself. It's a particularly intriguing era of India's past, because this is just a couple of years after Indian independence, Gandhi's assassination, and the horrors of partition, which still loom over the country. And Midnight at Malabar House won this year's Crime Writers Association Historical Dagger, which was lovely. Now, in the second book, the one I'm going to do a reading from, The Dying Day, Persis is summoned to Bombay's Asiatic Society, which is a real building in Bombay, been around for a couple of 100 years, built by the British, and it's a treasure house of artifacts and ancient objects from India's past. And the society's most valuable treasure has gone missing, and so has the person who's responsible for it. And as Persis investigates, she finds a series of coded riddles that she must solve, and as indeed must the reader. And these clues lead her around the city in pursuit of this ancient manuscript. And at the same time, bodies begin to pile up so that she knows darker forces are at work. So the book has been called The Da Vinci Code meets post-independence in India. Quick plug for Bay Tales. As you just mentioned, I'm going to be on stage with the lovely Anne Cleves, who, as some of you may know, won the Nobel Prize for Niceness earlier this year. And Anne has promised me that if I come up to Whitley Bay, she's going to sort me out a part in the next Vera series as Vera. So super excited about that. So please do come along. I've heard Whitley Bay is beautiful, and this could become an annual event, and you don't want to be the person who missed out on the first ever one. Okay, so the page I'm going to read from is right at the beginning of the book. Persis has been summoned to the Asiatic Society by Neve Forrester, who's an English woman who's the society's president, and she leads her down into the bowels of the society to the scene of the crime. They found themselves in a large, well-lit room, double-heighted with a sunken floor. A series of long, polished tables ran the center of the room with reading aids, magnifying glasses, manuscript blocks, spring calipers, laid out along their length. The air was ripe with the rich, solid smell of learning. Neve Forrester waited for them to finish taking the scene. We have almost 100,000 artifacts of the society, but here is where we house our most valuable treasures. We have in this room a Shakespeare first folio dated 1623. There are only about 200 known copies in the world, and a 200-year-old History of the World by Sir Walter Raleigh. Her eyes gleamed, but our most priceless artifact is a copy of Dante Alighieri's La Divina Commedia, the Divine Comedy, one of the 2 oldest copies in the world. It's been dated back more than 600 years, and now that manuscript is missing. Birla gave a small puff of annoyance. How valuable can an old book really be? Forrester's gaze threatened to annihilate the sub-inspector where he stood. Persis didn't need an answer. She recalled now the last time the manuscript had made headlines. It had been put on display just after the war, when a noted Dante scholar from London had arrived in the city to deliver a lecture. The talk had ended in chaos. Rioters in the grip of independence fervour had attacked the society. They'd stopped short of torching the place or looting its treasures, but the British expert had had to be smuggled out by a rear entrance and whisked back to the airport, his ardour for Dante forgotten in his desire to flee the manifest perils of the subcontinent. Tell me what happened. Forrester pursed her lips, her expression grave. Almost 2 years ago, the Society hired a new curator of manuscripts, a scholar by the name of John Healy. Healy is something of a celebrity in the world of paleography. He studied at Cambridge before making his name working on 13th century manuscripts ascribed to a monk known as the Tremulous Hand of Worcester. The work brought him worldwide attention, and he seemed set for a stellar academic career. And then the war intervened. John was a patriot. He signed up to fight and somehow ended up on the front lines. He was captured in North Africa and spent a year in a prisoner of war camp. You can imagine our delight when he contacted us after the war in the winter of 1947 to express an interest in coming to Bombay to work with a copy of the Divine Comedy. He worked here. Persis indicated the room around them. Yes, we do not permit the manuscript to leave the crypt. When did you realize it was missing? Frankly, it was John's absence we noticed first. He failed to come into work yesterday. When he failed to show up again this morning, I decided to call his home. There appeared to be no one there. She stopped. I asked Mr. Pillay, our librarian, to check on the Divine Comedy manuscript. That was when we discovered it was missing. Missing. The word told in Persis's mind. A priceless manuscript and a famous British scholar, both missing. It defied the odds that the two were unconnected. There you go.
Vaseem, I'm really hoping that somebody, Danny Marshall, has photoshopped your face onto Vera's body. That's all I'm saying. I'm really looking forward to you taking your position as Vera, and I did laugh so loudly that Zoom notified me I was actually still muted. So thank you for that. Linda Hill has come up with a brilliant question. Thank you, Linda. She says, with so much historical detail and research, how do you decide what to include and what to leave out of your writing?
Well, the rule of thumb with historical fiction is always, if a particular scene is overloaded with too much detail and it's slowing the plot down, then you've got to chuck it out. You've got to chuck stuff out. And every historical writer knows that. And we all make the mistake of putting too much in the first draft. And it's usually by the fourth draft that we have to, it's like tearing a lung out and getting rid of it. But you have to it has to serve the plot.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I look forward to seeing you in February. See you soon. Thank you. Okay. Right. This is our final reader before we go to a break. And it is Lesley Cara. Lesley Cara's debut, The Rumour, was a Sunday Times bestseller and has now been published in 18 countries and optioned for TV. Ooh! The Rumour was the highest selling crime fiction debut of 2019 in the UK and a Kindle #1 bestseller. Lesley will be appearing on our Keeping the Home Fires Burning panel alongside Lauren North and Nikki May. Lesley, we're so pleased to have you this evening. So thank you. I'm just going to hand over to you now.
Thank you. And it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and particularly thank you for inviting me to Whitley Bay next February. I can't wait to be there. Very, very excited. And I'm not going to say too much about book 4. I can't really believe I'm reading from book 4 already. It seems only yesterday, but it was The Rumour coming out. God, they work you hard in publishing, don't they? Book a year. I'm already writing book 5 and reading book 4. But anyway, here we go. It's not even out yet. It's out next year. It's called This Girl, That Girl. I haven't got the final cover to show you yet, unfortunately. So all will be revealed in a couple of weeks. But it takes place in southeast London, in the borough of Greenwich, which is an area of London I know really well, having lived there for most of my life. And it's about the niece of a murder victim And the woman who's arranging the funeral director, who's arranging the funeral for her. And there's another story of a missing woman, a kind of Susie Lamplugh type character as well, and that story that threads in between. So I'm going to read to you from chapter 1 of This Girl, That Girl. The bus idled in traffic. Scarlett rubbed a circle in the steamed up window. Soon she would be level with the crime scene, the house where the bedroom bloodbath had occurred. At least that's what it had been called in some of the more lurid headlines. There was nothing the tabloids liked better than a grisly murder. Scarlett wasn't the only passenger craning her neck to get a better view. The couple on the seat in front of her was looking too, and the old guy in front of them. The police tape had long since gone, but flowers were still heaped on the pavement outside. Scarlett wondered how long it would be before they were cleared away and people stopped gawping as they passed, people like her. She couldn't recall having seen roadside tributes like these when she was a child, but they were becoming increasingly common. When Fusilier Lee Rigby had been murdered further along this same stretch of road near Woolwich Barracks, the flowers had been there for months on end, flags too. But that had been different. He'd been a young soldier, hacked to death in an act of terrorism. Nobody wanted to forget that. Nobody would forget that. Rebecca Quilter's murder had been equally shocking. A 56-year-old woman beaten to death by her fiancé. Just one of so many women killed by their partners. Scarlett had been reading the statistics and they were staggering. 2 women a week in England and Wales alone. But domestic homicide was soon forgotten in favour of the next big story. In Rebecca's case, the Nationals had already moved on. Scarlett studied the Victorian house with interest, her eyes lingering on the large bay window on the first floor. An involuntary shudder travelled down her spine. They said she'd been attacked as she slept, bludgeoned with the baseball bat she kept under her bed in case of intruders. The reporters had made much of that fact, the irony of it. At least the spineless bastard had finished himself off too, slit his wrists and bled out. Scarlett closed her eyes and forced the images away. The bus lurched forward, nosing its way slowly through the traffic. Scarlett hoisted her rucksack over her shoulder and shuffled to the edge of the seat. She pressed the button and waited for the bus to stop before standing up. Some drivers were apt to pull away before she'd made it to the doors. Not all of them noticed her walking cane until it was too late, although since she'd chosen one made from clear acrylic, she couldn't entirely blame them. This afternoon, a woman with a toddler and a buggy to wrestle with meant that Scarlett had plenty of time. She stepped off the bus into the damp October air and called out her usual, "Thank you." On the pavement, she did the buttons up on her raincoat and headed back towards the zebra crossing, narrowly avoiding a large puddle from that downpour earlier. She was tired now and her back was starting to ache. She wanted nothing more than to get indoors. Later, when she was feeling more rested, she'd take a long hot shower in her beautiful bathroom and change into her pyjamas. Settle down on the sofa for an evening of mindless TV. Anything would do, as long as it was suitably numbing. As she neared the house where the murder had taken place, the stench of rotten lilies reached her nostrils. A part of her would have liked to pause and read the messages on the cards, but another part couldn't bear to look. Sympathy for the misfortunes of others was understandable, but when it spilled over into mawkishness, it left a sour taste in the mouth. Her eyes darted in the direction of the house, then back down to the pavement. One of the cellophane-wrapped bouquets had fallen in front of the pathway leading up to the front door, a particularly tasteless arrangement of garish chrysanthemums and frilly carnations. Scarlett nudged it away with her cane. Her heartbeat quickened. Her brother had been right in one respect. She should never have come here alone, not this first time. Sometimes Ollie seemed to forget that she was a 42-year-old woman and 3 years older than him. "You're so stubborn," he'd said. But he had been wrong about not coming back at all. She reached into her pocket for her key, walked up to the front door and unlocked it. This was her home. She had to come back sometime. And that's it. That's chapter 1. First time I've read it aloud.
Thank you so much for that, Lesley, and thank you for sharing that with us as well. Just while I've got you on, I need to tell everybody that unfortunately your podcaster in crime, Lauren, is too poorly to join us tonight. So we all wish her very well here, and we'll see both of you in February.
Yes, poor Laurie's got COVID, so that's really sad. So I'm sure she would have loved to have been here tonight, but she'll definitely be there in February.
Excellent. Thank you again. Thank you again, Lesley, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. So our illustrious Simon is going to take us to a break now, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.